close out this morning talking about non-dues revenue, which I know is not really important to any of you. That was a joke. We've got a couple of different panelists up here, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves so they can kind of tell you who they are, a little bit about their background, and why we have them. They won't tell you why they're on the panel, but they'll actually, from their conversations, will be able to make it very clear as to why they're on the panel, why they're on this panel.
Hi, good morning. I'm Amy Porter. I run the Affinipay program, which is a credit card processing program, and we do very targeted, custom, unique credit card processing programs for specific member groups.
Good morning. Hello? Okay, good, there we are. I'm Linda Janak. I'm the CEO of Talent Guard, and we are, actually I have been working with Adam since he had 5 employees and in a little tiny office, and when Affinipay came on board, so I know a lot about what Affiniscape does and the value it brings. And Talent Guard is an organization that provides career-related content and software to manage talent management processes.
Hi, I'm Nancy Morgan, and I am working on the Newsflash program. I've been with Affiniscape for about a year now, and working on the media products, looking forward to growing this product even more.
Great, thanks guys. And I want to say, if you guys have questions as we're going through this, just raise your hand and ask us. I want this to be kind of an open session, because I know you have questions that are somewhat specific that you may want to get answered, so feel free to ask those at any time. So let's kind of just start with, you know, maybe talking about each of the programs we have to offer. We're only going to spend a couple minutes on it, unless you guys have questions about them specifically. But obviously, we know non-dues revenue is critical to associations. How many people in the room have 50% or more of their income coming in from non-dues revenue? It's a good number. How many are higher than that, like 80%, 75% or higher? There's only 1 or 2. I mean, there's not very many. And I know that's a goal of a lot of associations. The more non-dues revenue you have coming in, the less, you know, the less that member retention. I mean, it's still important, but the less it kind of kills you as you start to lose members. So at Affiniscape, we've been trying from day one really to start designing and implementing non-dues revenue programs that are relevant and valuable. Just a little bit more background. I started Affiniscape because I was working with associations from a vendor perspective. So I was doing health insurance with Pacific Life. Everybody knows Pacific Life today, but back in the 90s, they really didn't. You know, they weren't advertising on every sports show in America. But I saw that the messaging from associations, they just, with the limited staff, they would just partner with everybody and say, you know, whether it's Hertz rental car discounts or whatever, and just let these vendors try to sell stuff. And over time, members got so turned off by it. Even though I knew I had a product that was good for them, the messaging was terrible, and all they heard was, we're trying to sell you something. And then, you know, as you guys all know, the vendors would disappear. So we want to help implement programs that your members view as valuable. Right? We want to be kind of your vendor staff, where, especially by industry, you tell us these are the services our members want, these are the discounted things that they would love to buy from us. But in the end, the message is from you guys, one single message is that if there's a product or service that you want or need to run your business or to manage your profession, and it provides value to you, and it's less expensive than you get it somewhere else, and it provides revenue to the association that better provides the education, the advocacy, the networking events that we have, isn't that a good deal? Most members would say, yes, that's a good deal, but that's not the message they hear traditionally. So let's just kind of start by, I want Amy to talk about the Affinipay program, because she does work with probably 60, 70 bar associations, I think. And legal, when we started Affinipay, I don't think we really planned on getting into legal, but I want Amy to talk about how they solved the problem for lawyers taking credit cards. So because of that, over the next 6 years, they've signed a tremendous amount. They've become a great partner of associations and a new service. And some of you, this service may be valuable. Some of you, I'm sure members don't take credit cards. So let's kind of talk about the program.
Definitely to Adam's point, credit card processing is one of these funny little services. It doesn't necessarily apply to globally to every association, but if it does apply to your association, if it's something your members are doing, it definitely can be a successful, profitable non-dues revenue program for you. and really what we've learned through the last 7 years of working on specifically on member benefits for credit card processing is you really have to find something unique. You have to add some sort of value to your membership besides price. There's so many competing factors out there. I mean, there's Groupons, they're affiliated with so many other groups. So how do we specifically add value? And I'll give you an example. We did a member benefit program for a Chamber of Commerce recently, and it was horrible. It didn't work. We provided a great service, we provided great value, we were competitive on price, but their members were across the board. There was nothing unique we could provide for them. As opposed to another example, we started working with bar associations. We branded a specific program for their industry called Law Pay, and we're now recommended by 27 state bars and 60 local bars across the country. And that's been very specific, and that's been very successful because we were very specific. We were able to target things specifically for their members as far as what their needs were. We were able to really focus on branding for that industry. So we're adding value, we're adding a unique service that their members can't get otherwise, and it's more than just price. So we've learned that the most successful programs, we're adding something besides price. What other value, how do we help their business, how do we help the members succeed, and those have been the more successful programs. And so those are the kind of things I think when you're looking at member benefits, find something that your members can't get elsewhere.
Talk just real quick about that, because you guys approach the partnership and the vendor relationship a little bit differently than some. And I know you have associations who have said things about your program and about how you guys help them provide value and service to their members that I think goes above and beyond a lot of their vendors.
Sure. You know, again, I'll go back to our legal program. Again, provide in addition to just providing a service to their members, which we take that very seriously. We intend to do a good job. But we've really taken an educational approach. First off, we do a ton of marketing because, as you guys know, you can have the best member benefit program in the world, but if your members don't see it, they don't know about it, it doesn't really do you any good. So the associations where we're visible, where the members can easily find us, obviously those are going to be more successful. But in addition to that, where we've really had some success is we've really taken an educational approach. For most of the state bars we work with, we are a CLE vendor, not vendor, but a CLE class. We do an hour session on practice management for the attorneys. So we're teaching them, beyond just taking credit cards, chargeback prevention, billing practices, using technology in your firm. We write articles. We help them with government compliance on credit card processing. So we take it beyond just, here's your merchant account, have at it. Anybody can do that. That's the easy part. But again, adding more value and taking it to that next level.
That's really what I wanted Amy to talk about, because I have heard not only from her associations, but even from you guys, the level of service they provide is no different to the member program than it is to you guys, because many of you obviously interact with Affiniscape. They told me yesterday that they spent an hour on the phone with Amy Earhart around PCI compliance and just loved the way they would walk through. How many companies do that stuff? So let's go over to you, Linda. Over to Linda. Talent Guard is a new service that we're implementing. Really in conjunction with the Career Center, right? Up to now, it's kind of been just a job board, even though we call it Career Center. To make a true Career Center, you have to have the other part, which is all content and resources for members. But I want Linda to talk a little bit about her program and some of the non-user revenue opportunities.
Yeah, that's great. So when I approached Adam, I said there are many reasons that members join associations. Obviously, one of them is a Career Center for networking. So I asked Adam, what if we could create the Career Center as more of a destination where we could start customizing content specific for the industry so that we could attract the members to come back more and more and more so that they could get value-added resources such as job descriptions, resume templates for their particular industry, how-to guides, like how do I approach the interview in my particular industry. And then also, over the last couple of years, I've built up industry experts who are certified career coaches in many different industries. And what if we could offer very specific and tailored career coaching advice and services to your members to help them make their transitions much more effective and easily, and do it at a cost that you can't get anywhere else. So we're basically going to beta test this concept with the services and the content, and also that we have tons of free articles to actually get people there. And then we have a process that will lead them toward the fee-based content. So we've got 4 associations we're doing it with. And from that, what we're going to do is then roll it out to the rest of the associations based on demand and priority and all of those things. So I've done this multiple times in different areas, and it's been very successful. I think it can contribute a tremendous amount of money to your non-dues revenue stream and add a really good value to the members of your organization.
Well, and to add on that, you guys have been through a lot of sessions over a few days, but if you went to some of Neil's and one of mine, where we had the 4 squares, you know, we had the education, basically networking, products and services, and legislation. Those are the 4 areas that we focus on, and we're going to focus on every day. And this is a huge part of the networking side. Many of you have said to us over the last couple of years especially, that when the economy is bad and people lose their jobs, they do look to you. A lot of times you get some industries got increased membership because they were coming to network, they were coming to try to find what they need to do in the next step. Linda's product and service, really, and there's a lot of free aspects. There's also employer side aspects. I mean, employers are going to be able to hire Linda's team or purchase papers that will help them write better job descriptions. I mean, we have, I don't know the exact numbers, but I mean, hundreds of thousands of employers that we're talking to and working with, and some of them write horrendous job descriptions, and they wonder why they don't get any results. Well, I mean, there are tips that we're trying to learn and pass on to those employers, and Talent Guard's content is just a great thing for that networking square of associations. We think it's going to allow employers to do better at the stuff they do, but also from the job seeker's perspective, allow them to start collaborating and networking, hiring and talking to the people they need to talk to, attending webinars on everything from how to create a better resume to really how to advance your career and how to create a career path for yourself, whether it's within the company or whether it's externally gathering education or things like that.
Yeah, and on that employer side, I think that's a good point, because what we're also looking at doing with your organization, and we're still in discussions, is how do you automate your performance review? How do you do leadership 360s? And how do you automate that internally so that from an operational perspective, that you're managing your own talent well? And there's tons of white papers that we're going to be distributing. So there's lots of opportunity both for your members and for your organization.
Pass it over to Nancy. All right.
My turn.
So I want Nancy to talk. A lot of you see the Newsflash service, but I don't want to talk as much. She's not going to talk about the service as much because you do know what that is. We briefly discussed that, but more importantly, how advertising is becoming not only a key service that we're going to continue offering, but the way we're networking together and collaborating is creating a lot of power and a lot of value in the advertisers' minds. You guys have great marketplaces, but we got to help you get your brand out in front and continue to build the brand that provides value, kind of win-win all the way around.
Yeah, as Adam said, the Newsflash is just one product, and it's the first product that we're leveraging to as a platform for going out to advertisers and leveraging the power of your industries. Whereas we might not be able to go out to an advertiser and say, hey, we have 300 members you might want to reach. We can go out and we can say, we have 70,000 members that we're reaching 2 times per week. They're reading our emails, they're going out to our websites. We're delivering advertising through a third party. We're able to do reporting. So we're really using this now as a platform for going out to advertisers where we wouldn't be able to reach them just on a one-off basis. Again, the Newsflash is great, and to Amy's point, as we start developing it, we're realizing it's not necessarily a cookie-cutter approach, that as we start talking to you and we see what fits for your industries, we'll be changing things, but still using that template approach. Again, leveraging the industries where we have a good group, and we can take content, we can work with Yellow Bricks, who's our a content provider, and we can get better deals with them and leverage the content across your industries, but still offer local content and area news that they can't do, you couldn't do on your own. And then we're able to compete with these big media networks, establish ourselves as a really credible media network with the advertisers. And while it may take a little time to build up that credibility, we know that in the long run, when we're able to come back and say, We have, 8 different industries with, 300,000 member reach. We're going to be able to bring in significant non-dues revenue for you guys.
Well, and I want to pause for a minute. You guys are all here the first day. I want you to remember when Kevin put that slide up there and said, "We are you." Right? That's how we're approaching it. And we want you guys to look at us as a staff that you just hired to build a career center, to build career content, to build a credit card program, just as if we're sitting in your office. We're going to come up with a lot of ideas. We know your first response maybe we can't do that. And we want you to be open to determine, is there a way to get this stuff done? Because we have a lot of very talented people we want to put to work for you. But I tell you, I've been in this business long enough, and I've seen stuff that amazes me, and I get why they did it 25 years ago. But today you have to compete. You have to compete every day, and that means you have to market. And you have to build a brand. And if you have to actually pick what's the goal. We want to own the job market in our space. If that's the goal, a lot of work needs to be done. And you can't say I want to own the space and then do no marketing. Right? And at the same time, we have a lot of full-time salespeople that are on the phone. Maybe some of them are here, and a lot of them are not. They make 50, 60 calls a day, 100 and 100 calls a month, thousands of calls a year on behalf of organizations. But they can only drive employers so far. Right? If there's no job seekers there to actually apply for the jobs, you can only sell them 1 or 2 times at the most. Right? So we want you to view us as your partner and help us determine what your goals are long term, and then we can figure out where we fit in. And I know we have the most creative team we've ever had in terms of building your brand. One of the other things I want to talk about is there's also, and a number of you have changed this mentality already, but there's still this old school mentality that it's vendor and association. And if you want to sell your product, you got to pay for everything. You got to pay to advertise here, you got to pay to come here, you got to pay to that. And it's okay to a point, but eventually, and you guys know this because I was talking to somebody yesterday, said eventually you run the vendors off, or their mentality the whole time they're with you is, okay, we got to pay for the stuff, so we're going to sell us all day long. We're selling us. And I think that's the old school way. That's part of what I was talking about back in the 90s. They're like, okay, we just spent 10 grand, we got to get it back. So go hammer the members as fast as you can. Not build a relationship that's long-term, that's trying to build a truly valuable program. I mean, Amy says our goal is to help you get every lawyer in the state of Iowa on the Affiniscape program, whether they're a member or not. But no matter whether they're a member or not, they're still perceiving the value that's coming from the Iowa State Bar. Now, bars are a little different because I'm mandatory, so you have to be a member. But they're even changing their attitude, where before they didn't give a crap if they liked it or not. You had to be a member. But today they're starting to change their attitude a little bit. So, we need to provide value. So to us, non-dues revenue programs aren't just about the money. I mean, granted, that's what they're called non-dues revenue, but we want the money, but it's more about value long term. You guys have heard me say, if I can sit here and we can sell you software for the next 10 years, but you've already heard me say in 12 years, it's not profitable today. Right? Our software is still not profitable today. It's barely losing money, and we've kept it at break even forever. And a lot of you can't even pay the prices we're charging today, yet we're adding new functionality every other month. Right? So it's and big new stuff. And when we get into the social media platforms, the education platforms, it's big stuff. So we got to figure out together how we're going to make money, right? How we're going to make this thing profitable and continue for another 12 years. So we're always open, and we are very, very open to hearing what you guys want us to put together in terms of non-dues revenue programs or member benefits or complete services where potentially we hire the staff that actually manages them, which is what we have today in the Career Center. We're going to have a talent guard. We have an advertising network. We've hired what we call success managers. So in the Career Center, we now have a success manager. That person you're going to look at as your staff for those that are using the Career Center service. And their role is to make sure you're doing everything you possibly can do as an association to achieve the goal of being number one. That's our goal. If it's not your goal, we may not be the right partner. Because somebody says, well, we just want to provide a bunch of jobs. Let's just put a link to Indeed. You can pull up every job in America. There's no money in it. Does anybody have any great programs that you put together? I'd like to hear somebody with a very creative non-dues revenue program that you actually implemented that is successful. Anybody have any successful non-dues revenue programs that you think can be of value to the members? Nobody wants to talk this morning. You're going to make me keep talking. See, you guys complain I talk too much, and nobody wants to talk. No. Well, I don't know if you want to add some stuff, Nancy, about I think advertising. I think you kind of cut it short. I mean, there's a lot of potential in advertising. I think real quick, you you'd have a marketplace, a built-in marketplace. And this is what I recommended 15 years ago. I said, you know, these associations have 5,000 physical therapists or pharmacists or 280 home care agencies or, you know, 800 apartment communities. I mean, they have this, you know, marketplace that I still believe today, even if they're not paying you to be a member, they still believe they should be paying you to be a member for the most part. But now it just comes down to value. So like I said, we just talk all the time, but if I would help you provide value and relevance to your members, you know, 3 to 4 to 5 years out, and that's how long we think. We're literally putting plans together for 5 years down the road, how we're going to help industries and help our partners get back to the level of relevance they were at in the mid-90s before the internet came around. Competition's everywhere, and we're your team that's going to help you find it, especially if you don't have that team, which I don't think many of you do. So Nancy, talk about advertising. This is our most exciting thing really in 2012. We believe it's going to pass Career Center probably by 2013 in terms of the revenue that we're paying back. Today we're paying associations this year, I think, close to $2 million from the Career Center service alone. So we have many groups where we're not paying them more than they're paying us, which is what we set out to do a long time ago. And we're going to continue. I think this is the next service. So talk a little bit about what you've seen and some of the feedback from members in terms of the content and from associations actually replacing some of their own services because it frees them up to do stuff that they want to do.
Yeah, you know, as we said, this started out as a non-dues revenue opportunity, but as we talk to more and more of you and we hear member feedback, we're finding out that it is really a valuable member benefit. So it's just as strong on that side as it is on the non-dues revenue. The non-dues revenue piece, you guys will have to be patient because the Career Center's been around for a really long time. It's taken us a long time to get to where we are. And so we're seeking that amount of investment in this product, you know, in this area as well. So like I said, this is just the first product. The Newsflash is just that first vehicle for getting that advertising out there. But eventually, if you sat in on Neil's sessions on premium model and building your social network, again, this is going to be a really important platform, just like the Career Center, for providing all of these modules and these pieces that we're working on. So if you know, for those of you who've seen the Newsflash, we've got the featured jobs that are flowing in. So that's live data that's flowing right in, so that somebody, if they haven't seen the job board, they see a job and they can click right to the Career Center. So we're doing a lot of cross-promotion. So as we start to build up these networks, we'll have more and more inventory or space for the advertising. So eventually the advertising will flow across all different areas. Anything that's a product that you guys are featuring to your members, you can run advertising across. Again, it will take a while to get there. And as we build up these relationships with these advertisers, both local and national advertisers, we'll be able to provide them more and more types of targeting. So right now we can say you can go across the entire network, you can geo-target you know, based on associations. But as we start to gather that user information that Neil talked about, as we start to get registrations, we'll be able to provide even more targeted types of advertising. And the more targeted you get, the more dollars you get for that advertising. So that's the eventual goal, is to be able to run advertising across all of the products, no matter what they are. And that everything is going to cross-promote everything else. So Talent Guard will be a part of the Career Center. It will also be a part of our content products. Social media will be built into all of that, and we'll be able to run advertising for significant non-dues revenue across all that. Does that pretty much cover it?
Just, you know, how many in here survey their members on a, you know, maybe a semi-annual or annual basis about benefit programs? Okay, only one group, 2 groups. So this is another area we'd like to help fill, but you know, the difficulty for us is we can't do it one at a time. I mean, even the advertising program, the Newsflash program we just launched for pharmacy was our first industry, probably about 4 months ago, maybe 20 days ago. And we said we had to have 20 to even start it, to even put the manpower behind it. The content has a cost of between $1,500 and $2,000 a month, right, per industry. So that's $24,000 a year. So we have to have the numbers. But what's interesting is how quickly the advertisers get excited about it when you're talking 70,000, 80,000 pharmacists in this example. But you know, the value that I think we can also provide is helping understand what your members want. I mean, we're going to be working with a number of you, especially by industry, to pull members from different states to form almost like a committee of programs to talk to pharmacists or physical therapists or occupational therapists or realtors or lawyers to figure out what can the association offer that's of value. And with the buying power that we've helped create by pulling you guys together, again, keep in mind that a lot of you in this room who don't know Affiniscape, you hear me say that, you think, oh, you're going to sell stuff to our members. We'll never sell anything unless you want to partner with us. I mean, we're you. Right? That's the attitude that we have every single day. If someone on our staff doesn't have that attitude, we continue to remind them, hey, you're there. You need to learn as much as you can about their space. This is if they hire you to run that program. And I think the more we can help do that, and like I said, for us, this is long term. It's not going to happen in the next 4 months. We look at every program we implement, how does it fit under those boxes, and how does it fit under you providing service. But in the end, we say we want our clients to own that space, right? And we work backwards, and we look at who we have to hire. And some programs are going to come up, and we're going to say, there's just no money in it. That means is a good example in some industries. We made some commitments in the past, and I think we got people excited in industries that it's just too hard in one state at a time. I mean, there are some industries like engineering or architecture, or even banking, which is a new group for us, that 1 or 2 states, I can't afford to put a salesperson on who wants to make 6 figures. Because there's just not that many jobs. It works in physical therapy, nursing, anything healthcare related for the most part. But if we can get 40 or 50 banking associations and then 1 or 2 people selling nationwide, then it works. It's all about numbers. So we're going to be more upfront and honest with you guys about what we need. So if some of these services are of value to you, we say, okay, you want to do the Newsflash? We know it's valuable, but we need your help to get 20 peer groups on board so we can actually afford to get content. We want to let you guys know what this stuff costs so you know what we need in terms of help from you to implement some of these programs. But at the same time, like I said, we want you to throw stuff at us. I think in the next probably 3 to 6 months, we're going to hire an entire business development leader whose responsibility it will be to understand what associations need in terms of programs, negotiating the programs. Some of them generic and across all groups, some of them maybe very industry specific. So, how many, another question I should have asked at the very beginning, how many professional associations are in your individual member-based groups? So the rest of you are trade, obviously. I know because pretty much all we have. We have a lot of true 501c3 groups, but there are a couple of them. Because that makes a difference, obviously, as well, right? I think the trades, you guys usually have bigger budgets, bigger staffs. How many of you actually have somebody on your staff that their sole responsibility or their primary responsibility is member benefit programs and negotiating with someone? That tells me there's a big market for us to help. Right? And that's what that tells me. So I should have asked this question. I was going to have to sleep from last night because all my work is going to happen. Once a year. Any questions? I mean, we're basically halfway through the program. And any questions to any of the panelists up here about their specific services? I'm asking some questions.
So Nancy, can you provide a little more context on how advertisers make their purchase decisions? The difference in advertisers who are looking for B2B services versus consumer-facing, based on the demographic.
That's a really good point.
And how it affects CPM and how that fits in our vision moving forward for what we're working on.
Really good point. Like Baker said, B2B and B2C, so business to business and business to consumer, are two very different types of advertising. Consumer type of advertising is usually purchased at a much, much lower CPM, and CPM is cost per thousand, so it's a way of selling advertising impressions. We're going after the B2B market, so we're selling the membership as business professionals. So they're looking to sell business type of, their software or, it depends on what industry, a pharmaceutical market, getting their information out there about prescribing information. So it's a much higher CPM, and that's the way that we're setting our network up as a business-to-business network so that we are able to garner a much higher CPM. And again, like I talked about earlier, the more that we can target demographically, the higher the CPM an advertiser is willing to pay. So we're out there with, it's a much smaller group of networks that are out there that sell on a given type of basis, and that's the way we're establishing ourselves.
How many of you actually sell advertising on your websites today, just your websites? Does it, how many of those think they're charging enough or think they're getting value for the vendors? When you hear from your vendors they're getting value, so every hand went down to one. So that, again, these are the things, I'm asking this question, these are the things we're going to start asking and digging into and figuring out. Because it's not a win-win-win. The members don't perceive value, the associations don't generate revenue, the members don't think it's a good deal, they don't come back. I mean, we've basically been vendors. We stood at the trade show booths, and we've had groups, and I know Amy and I have at some different bar conferences, and it's amazing in one sense and somewhat appalling sometimes of how poorly they're treated. Right? And we want to help you guys to change that. And I know it's the reason, there's nothing intentional about it. It's just lack of resources and lack of staff and lack of understanding, which comes back to lack of time to understand, right? To understand how do we make partnerships valuable. There was a woman here yesterday, she had to leave yesterday, but Lisa Pandolfini from the LA County Bar, and she comes from the for-profit world and has worked for companies like California Pizza Kitchen and the Coffee Bean as a marketing expert. And it was interesting to hear her take as she's been with LA County Bar now for 10 months and how absolutely difficult it is to get anything done, to get any kind of real programs. Effectively eliminated most costs to advertising and to vendors. And said, look, this is a partnership. We're going to get our money from the revenue generated, not charging you for an ad everywhere. And it's experimented, but it has literally in just 10 months created an entirely new atmosphere around their programs, their events and meetings. Even people are participating and vendors are participating. So I'm using that as an example of just something, right? Not the old traditional way of us versus them, so to speak. So there has to be somebody in the room that has a successful program. And what I'd like to hear is, what do you think makes it successful? Did you take the time to understand the vendor? I mean, we can sit here and talk about ourselves all day, I think. But I want to include some of you guys. I want there to be other value other than what we're already doing. I know the services we're talking about here are going to be very valuable. I know advertising is going to be hugely valuable because in a short amount of time we've gone from having 0 proposals to multiple proposals over 6 figures, where advertisers are interested and say, well, what can we get for $100,000? Well, you get you something. And if we build up the cost and make that more, the cost basis and make it as efficient as possible, and more of that is going back to those organizations. But advertisers are interested in big groups. They're not interested in working with 800 bar associations separately. Right? And it's going to take us time to continue working with you guys to get that phase. Who has a program that's successful? You guys are a tough group. They're not feeling. I know you do. I was going to pick you out if you didn't say anything. As the biggest HR association in America, you have to have some successful programs.
Will you stand up?
Do you want to stand up, or do you want a microphone?
Yeah, microphone probably be good.
I work with PIRE, Professionals in Human Resources Association. I've been with the organization about 2 years. And one of the first things that I did, because I come from a sales background, association sales background, was have a conversation with our vendors and partners. I didn't feel that the association had really done that, and I think some associations fail to look, as Adam was saying, the perspective of the vendor in that relationship. And I'd say probably 90% of our partners, it was a one-way communication with the association communicating to them once a year and proposing a sponsorship exhibit or a renewal of the agreement. And what happened is, as I talked to these companies, I said, well, what value are you getting from being affiliated with us? Across the board, our vendor affinity partners said none. my predecessors had signed multi-year agreements, and I asked when was the last time these agreements were revisited or you had a conversation. It was 3 years. So it took me about 6 months to sit with all the vendors to figure out what they wanted to get out of the relationship and how we could best partner with them to help them achieve their goals. What happened in the span of 1 year, we were able to double our revenue because they were just so excited that somebody was talking to them and engaging them in the thought process. I know for our annual conference, many of them were really upset, and we had probably greater than 50% turnover year over year, which was not sustainable because 1 year somebody would just sell out with 250 booths, and that next year 150 of those people wouldn't come back. So we presented them with a growth plan where we were going to grow based on a ratio of the number of attendees. So then there was an expectation of what size of exhibit show they would have and the number of attendees, which came out to be 8 attendees per 1 exhibit booth, and they were more than happy to pay more money. Like I raised money, I raised the dues the first year, I raised the dues last year, I'm raising the dues again this year, but because they're partners, they're at the table providing feedback, they're more than willing to go with us because they see the value in the relationship. Instead of, and I see associations, some of our sister HR associations that list 50 industry partners that they get some sort of revenue with. We chose to pare it down and just focus on a few to then give value to the members. And the same way that we select just a few vendors, in 2012, what we're going to implement for the exhibitors is we're taking the approach of, maybe we have too many of one category at our show. We're going to grandfather those that come back, and we give them a deadline. If you don't meet that deadline, then we will provide a different shift so that we are bringing potential partners to our members. So it's across the board, just having a conversation, and it takes time. It takes time to pick up the phone and make sure that those folks know that you're their partner. You're looking after their businesses as well.
I mean, that was a perfect example of kind of what I just talked about as well. It's good to hear, because I know Raphael and I have had some very in-depth conversations by phone. This is the first time we've met because they're a relatively new customer, but I think he hit it on the head. The difference between a partner and a vendor. That's how I think, if I could help you the way you approach your other vendors, just from being one and being treated like one, a lot of times. But if you can, in your mind and in your staff's mind, get everybody to view your groups as partners, true partners, and partners ask each other questions, and partners are concerned about the other's well-being, right? And trying to figure out how are we going to create a long-term relationship. Because I mean, I've been in this business now for close to 18 years working with associations, and it's still happening. I mean, it's the same kind of stuff. They come in and you go through them, and you got to find a whole new set, and it's not effective and not really efficient on a long-term basis. One of the things that we've brought up to other organizations, and this doesn't work if you have 250 booths, but I know a lot of you have smaller shows or smaller things like that. And one advantage to us is just having, even if it's 3 minutes to speak, as a vendor, if you have somebody in a booth or a sponsor, giving them 3 to 5 minutes to talk instead of having them stand at a table for 8 hours. I can promise you, if you talk to them, 80% or more would say, I'd rather have 3 to 5 minutes to talk to a collective group and not stand in a booth at the table and hoping this, please come, hey, somebody as they walk by. You've all been there. But just another tip, because it will generate money. I mean, I know it's about non-news revenue, but the happier your vendors and your partners are, treated like partners, you'll start making more money. Because they'll be excited about working with you versus after having a relationship with you. And I know it's difficult to be able to small staff, so hopefully we're going to be able to fill some of those voids, and we can't do it for everybody. But the bigger the industries get and we're able to collaborate with members, the easier it's going to be for us to put full-time resources behind it on our staff to help figure out what vendors, what advertisers, what sponsors are being funded. Anybody else have another successful approach towards their non-news revenue programs? I didn't expect there to be much answer. Well, again, if you guys have questions for us, we're happy to answer them. I apologize for this. I don't really apologize. I think we've talked about some good topics already this morning, but Kevin was going to be in charge of this, so I got kind of this yesterday was told I was going to do this, and I did do a very good job of really preparing good questions. I think, again, we have great programs. We know we have great programs. I mean, Amy doesn't pat herself on the back enough, but I mean, in 5 years, they were over 10,000, probably close to 10,000 merchants, signing 300 law firms, and have been routinely signing 300, imagine signing 300 lawyers and law firms a month on a credit card program. I mean, it's pretty successful. Now she's looking at other industries like architects and other types of businesses that they can truly help that traditionally don't take credit cards. And it's starting, even though it's pennies, right, over years it starts adding up to dollars, to thousands of dollars. And the associations are truly benefiting from it because they both get a value and revenue. We're excited about the talent of our program. I'd love to hear if you guys have questions. I think there's, oh, sorry, Louise?
Hey, just a quick question on the advertisements. I think that's a wonderful thing, and we have a journal that we sell advertisements in, and we're looking to expand that with our website. And we haven't started using the Newsflash yet, but we're probably on the cusp of it. And just thinking along the lines of some of our endorsement deals that we have with partners, some of them have exclusivity clauses, and so I'm just curious how those two might play together. Like, let's say you sell an ad in the Newsflash to a company that is a competitor to someone we have an exclusivity contract with. How would that work together?
When Adam says we argue, it's not just lip service, and we want that communication to be ongoing. And when we start the Newsflash with you, we'll talk to you about the types of advertising you want on there, if there are any exclusions, if you have somebody in particular you want us to go to. So we want it to be very custom. Even though we're leveraging content across, we want to make sure that we're taking all of your individual considerations into that. And so even if there are like in-house types of events that you want to use our advertising space for, we also allow that. So there's a lot of customization, even though it is sort of a template-driven thing, we work with you on that type of stuff.
Yeah, so there are, and that's come up many times already. I mean, we want to help expand those programs, and you have other services that we have nothing to do with, which is fine, but we want to work with you to create packages across all of the different lines. Some of them may be things we're supporting and backing, others may be things you do on your own, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, it's just adding more value to those vendors. One last thing I'll talk about, and even though we said we're not going to talk about things we're going to do, but this is very close. We know we're going to do this, and it's the education platform. I mean, how many of you have continuing education as a requirement for your industry? That's a big chunk. So it's going to benefit you guys the most. Others, how many of you just offer education and actually do a pretty good job at it? All right. I mean, even though it's not mandatory, you have a lot of education. So one of our thoughts, exactly like the Career Center, of networking states together, is creating a network education platform where states can share content, although brand themselves as their members are taking content. We know many of our clients have staffs, and they have the ability to create 3 to 5 classes a year. That's about it. But in the end, if our goal is to own education, in our state, in our industry, in our space, then 5 classes doesn't work. Right? We have hundreds of classes, hundreds of quality classes that are rated and reviewed by our peers. If anybody, if you attended my session yesterday, we talked about how to create consistent data so we can actually match people and allow people to match themselves through the social aspect of the product as we build it forward, where they can rate and review courses and then automate the Members 360 system to automatically become a marketing engine to promote your courses, both live and online. We're building very in-depth plans on how we look to see this happen. And it'll be over the next it'll take 3 to 5 years to get it all done and in place, but the education platform will probably be launching in the next 6 months. So we've narrowed it down to 3 providers. We really like one of the best. They dominate the legal industry and the banking industry already. They pretty much have 45 to 50 states. So we're excited about offering that program. And again, it's going to be a little bit of a lot. You're going to start building it, building it, building it. And the end goal for us is 5 years you own education. And that your members don't look anywhere else because they don't need to look anywhere else. A lot of these programs, like I said yesterday in the session, comes down to marketing. Marketing has to be consistent. It has to be constant. You got to keep doing it over and over and over again because you'll hit the right person at the right time. And that's what it's all about. If you guys, how many have visited our new resource center? How many don't know about the new resource center? Okay, we're going to make sure you do. There's unbelievable content there from, 15 thought leaders today? We're adding them every day. We just added another one yesterday. Association thought leaders, a lot of free content, a lot of white papers and case studies. But we built this up as a marketing engine, and we're looking at, we view ourselves as an association. You guys are our members, right? We're trying to retain you and continue delivering more value, more service. So things that we implement, processes we implement, we think we can help just kind of push down the level to where it works for you guys as well. But Baker has built a great engine of content and value that hundreds already have downloaded papers, right? Just in a short amount of time. But I think this is again, it's an engine that once it gets automated, and this is what we're looking at building 360 on that for you guys, where you can automate the delivery of services and the messages. Because with your staff, it's hard for you to do it. So we have to automate it. We have to build it in a system that provides content and information to the right person at the right time based on who they are and what their skill set is, what their data fields are, what kind of specialty they're in, whatever it is. So that's the way we're thinking. And we want your members to also be able to say, these are the benefits I'm interested in, these are the classes I'm interested in, the topics, this is the job I'm interested in. Don't bother me unless it comes up. And when it comes up, you'll automatically let them know. So that's the kind of thinking that we're doing. It's all around value and relevance, delivering at the right time. And in the end, you'll want to do it. Because you'll have things that vendors, sponsors, advertisers, employers, education providers cannot get anywhere other than you. So, do you guys want to add anything else? Anybody want to add anything? So, again, I think we'll kind of end this one a little early unless anybody has any questions. Because I know you guys probably have to get your stuff out. We're going to have a closing session at 10:30. Is that right? And I can tell you right now, it won't last an hour. Again, Kevin was going to do a lot of closing. I certainly have some things I want to say, but
I've got one kind of final question I'd like to use too. So in building up the resource center, we surveyed what topics we're interested in, and we thought non-dues revenue would be at the top of the list, and it wasn't. We were kind of surprised by that. And so when we dug a little deeper, what we heard was we'd love to implement strategic member value programs, but we're too busy just keeping our head above water. Like, we've got an association. So with that in mind, what have we learned over 6 years with Career Center? What's unique about our approach there? And how is that shaping our philosophy about the new programs that we're going to implement all moving forward?
Well, I think the best answer to that is what we have learned that we have to approach it from day one in an open, honest fashion. Like Career Center is a perfect example. So we have groups that we had signed years ago thinking, oh, we can make this work, and we'll just we'll get out there and make phone calls and we'll make it work. And then the association does no marketing. I'm going to use legal as the best example because the bar associations don't want to email their members anything. They're dealing with lawyers, how we can't email all of our members. And we just couldn't continue making the calls. We were making the calls, we were making the sales, but there was no traffic. There was no traffic and no job seekers, no applicants. Without applicants, that's why they pay to post a job. They started failing. So we had 60 or maybe 70 bar associations at the beginning. Not many of them were very successful. So we started begging groups, let us do the job flash email. We have to market this system because not only are the employers not paying, but sales reps are quitting on it because it's wasted their time. If they have to work 10 different associations, they're going to work on the ones where they know they're going to get results and value. We got Florida Bar to actually do email. Surprisingly enough, one of the biggest ones in the country. And within, 2 years, we had that for 2 years, and it was basically non-existent, their job board. This year it grossed over $200,000, and it is one of their best perceived value-added benefits. They get comments and feedback all the time. So the takeaway from that is, we're going to approach groups up front and say, this is what, and we do this in the Career Center now. We say, if you're going to sign up with us, our goal is to be number one. Our goal is to find out the day you sign that agreement with us, we're going to find every single employer in the state that could potentially hire your members if you're a professional organization. Right? If you're a trade, it takes a little more digging. Right? Okay, I have trades come all the time. Oh, we have a job where we have companies hiring all the time. I said, well, the companies are the easy part, right? The job seekers and the candidates are the hard part. So you might have a trade association, like an apartment association, and that's actually a relatively good example because they do have a lot of employee traffic on their websites anyway because of education courses and meetings and events. But biomedical or hotel and lodging, restaurants, they have no traffic. So you got to figure out how do we drive traffic. And in the end, we figured out you can't. I mean, you can't spend enough money to drive the traffic, so it's a war that isn't going to work. And we need to be upfront about that stuff, and we are being upfront about it now. But same with these other programs. If we can't, we're not going to launch Newsflash services unless we know there's advertisers to pay the bills, because we know you don't want to pay the bills, right? So we have to be more thorough on our end. So I know there's a lot of programs you guys are going to want to do because I've talked to a lot of you. Can we launch that tomorrow? We're not saying, well, no, we can't launch it tomorrow. We have it, you're right, we have the Newsflash program, and we'd love to launch it for everybody, but we have to make smart decisions. We have to make sure it works. But you'll find we'll be very upfront and honest about what it takes. We know what it takes to make a successful career center. We absolutely know what it takes because we have been doing it for 6 years. And like I said, we know that it's repetitive, over and over motions that make it successful in the long run. We know that in some of our job board states that there's no question about it. When someone's looking for a job, it might be 2 years after we started it, they think of the associated first. We know they do because they're getting 2 job flashes every single month that have jobs in it. They're seeing it everywhere they can possibly see it. We're going to do the same thing in the other services. So that's pretty much it. We're going to be very upfront and honest. But we also want to, like I said, back to you guys tell us what benefits you think are valuable. How many of you attended Neil's session? Did you see Neil Ashizawa? He has this basically a value chain system. A lot of you shake your heads, so you've seen it. Starts out with the vision, right? The vision, but in the end, in order to generate revenue, you have to have value received by somebody. There's a bunch of little chain links in the middle, and he says if any one of those links is broken or missing, it's less likely that the value will be achieved at the end. But the point I'm going to make is the vision. You guys have the vision. You know what you're talking to members all the time. You know what they want. You know what they need, what they'd like to see, but you just don't have the time to investigate it. Throw those things to us. As we continue to grow our staff, we may be 100. By the end of next year, we're probably 150 to 170 because we are growing fast now. And we'll have the people that can go investigate that stuff. And we'll come back and say, we think you got something here. Let's pull more groups together and talk about it, or we don't think it works. Let us do the legwork on those things, and trust that we'll come back with enough information to either implement it or move on to the next thing. So anything else? Anybody got any more questions? You guys are just question heavy this morning. No, I'm kidding. I know it's been a long 3 days. Your brains are probably completely fried. In fact, a couple of you told me they were. So we're going to let you get out of here. It's we're only about 5 or 10 minutes early. Go do what you need to do, and then we'll see you back down here at 10:30. Is that right? 10:30. Thank you, guys.